Hey everybody, welcome back. It's a hot one. It's still morning. It's freaking hot. And for some reason I'm drinking coffee. But what the hell? By the way, just so it's not unclear, somebody commented on my blue mug a few videos ago about how it was some political supporting somebody in politics. I would never have a political mug. I don't care. Get that out of the way. I don't support politicians on either side. I think almost all of them are corrupt. Out of the way. So it is Saturday, July 25th, 2026. I'm back home after a little over 2 weeks on the road. And I thought I would do a video, by the way, tack för sist, välkommen tillbaka. I thought I would do a video kind of just a little synopsis of my life story for anybody that's interested. And I don't know if anybody is interested, but in case you are, I thought I would kind of go through a fairly quick summation of my life and maybe go into more detail at another time. But so I was born in Stavanger, Norway, December 10th, 1963. We moved from Canada from Norway to Canada before I turned 5. So I was quite young. I do have memories of Norway from that time. I remember 2 brothers after me. So I'm the oldest of 7 siblings, 6 brothers, 1 sister. I remember my second youngest brother. So he's, what is he, 59 now. He won't admit to that, but he's 59. So I'm 62, Trond is 60, and then the next one is 59. I remember him being born, which would have been 67, I believe. So I wasn't even 4 yet when he was born, but I remember my dad taking me to the hospital. And you know, back then the men were separated from their wives while they were giving birth. But I can remember this window, and I believe it was a round window, and my dad held me up to the window into the room where my mom was with my new brother. And I can see the picture in my mind. I can see her holding him. Sorry, it is just muggy out here. And I have several images like that in my mind. They're not really like, you know how you picture a memory and it's like a movie in your head. The memories of Norway when I was little are more like picture clips, like looking through a photo album. I have a very clear memory of sitting on my mom's, or my grandma, Bestemol's front yard, and it had kind of a steep incline down to the road, and then below that was a creek. And she had this rock wall, kind of a rock garden. And I have a very clear image of sitting on that. I was probably only 2 or 3 at that time. The one image that is like a video in my head, and I remember I talked to my dad about this years and years and years ago, decades ago. I said, you know, I have this memory of this man that would come lean over me, and he had like a fedora type hat and sunglasses, and he would never say anything. And he would just kind of look at me for a second, and then he'd walk away, and he's like, my dad's like, that's not possible. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, that's your grandpa. And he died when I was very young. I don't even know if I was 2 yet. So I was literally in a crib, and he would come look at me every day. My dad said he came every single day. He'd look in on me, and then he'd leave. And I have a very crystal clear video in my head of my grandpa, Bestefal. Fal, if you're Norwegian, far is my father's father. I never knew him, obviously, but I couldn't have been more than a year and a half at the most. It's funny how the brain works, because, you know, we have very, very few, if any, memories from when we're babies. Our mind just isn't formed enough. But I have that image in my head, and it's very clear to me. So that's a really cool image, since I never got to know my grandpa on that side. I knew both my grandparents on my mom's side, Bestemol and Bestfall, quite well. And then when I went back to a Norwegian or a Mormon mission in Norway, I got to spend a couple weekends with them, and they came and visited in Canada. We went back a couple times when I was a kid. We're heading back to Norway here pretty soon. So we moved to Canada. I was about 4.5, and I don't have any real clear memories of Canada until I was probably about 6. But my best friend growing up, who is still one of my very good friends, damn near 60 years later, he's told me before that he remembers me only speaking Norwegian. But you know how kids are. They just communicate in their own way. And we just bonded instantly. They were in our same ward, which is a grouping, a congregation in the Mormon church. And I have so many memories of him. I had a lot of friends growing up. I was very lucky, lots of friends, but him and I were tight. I mean, we did everything together. Every once in a while, it would blow up, and we would literally get into a fist fight, beat the crap out of each other, hate each other for a couple days, and then we'd always make up. We never stayed mad at each other. So I had a really good childhood growing up in that little town of Tabor. We had endless freedom, especially in the summer. We could go anywhere, do anything we wanted. We went hiking down to the river bottom. We camped down there by ourselves when we were 10, 11, 12 years old. We'd hike out to the irrigation ditches south of town and float on tubes all day long during the summer. We rode bikes endlessly. I remember so clearly when the 7-Eleven opened up in our little town. We only had a couple of we might have only had one grocery. No, we had two. We had Safeway and IGA. And people liked one or the other, and they only shopped at one. It was kind of funny. But store hours were not what they are today. I mean, you know, the stores closed at, I think, 6 on weekdays, 4 or 5 on Saturday, and no stores were open on Sunday. The only store that I ever remember being open on Sundays or holidays was this little convenience store on Main Street in Tabor. And it was run by a Chinese family. Last name Hao, and I actually have a friend I think this was his uncle probably, because I think all of them were related. I actually had a really good friend with that same last name that died when he was only 8. I have a very clear image, and he might have been his son actually. Very clear image of the funeral, and they had an open casket, and it freaked me out, and it still affects me. I do not like open caskets. I don't understand it. I never have. I want to remember that person. I don't want to remember this leftover of the human. That's not them anymore. And it freaked me out, and I don't enjoy it. And if I go to a funeral and it's an open casket, most of the time I won't go up to it. But that was a sad part of my life. But I go back to the 7-Eleven. I remember, so the convenience store, he was open on Sundays and even on holidays. And I remember one Christmas I got a model. It was like a model battleship. And my parents forgot to buy glue. And I opened it Christmas Eve, and I was so excited to build it. And I realized I have no glue. So Christmas Day, I was like, can we go buy glue? And I was probably 8 or 9, and they're like, there's nothing open. And somebody said, House is open. And so I walked all the way downtown on Christmas Day, and sure enough, he was open, and he happened to have model glue. So that's a really cool memory. But when the 7-Eleven opened, I don't remember the year exactly. I could have Googled it, but I was around 11, 12, 13 years old. I remember we were riding bikes everywhere. And my best friend and I would manage to scrounge a quarter up somehow and go buy a Big Gulp. They were 25 cents, and there was no tax back then, so it was just 25 cents. And I remember getting that Big Gulp, and back then 32 ounces was the biggest drink you could buy. In fact, it was unheard of. Nobody had seen a drink like that. And we would get those, and we'd just look at them like they were the most amazing thing you'd ever seen. And Slurpees. By the way, if you're ever in Canada, if you've gotten Slurpees in the States, Canada's 7-Elevens are a completely different beast. They, in my opinion, I don't even like Slurpees down in the States from 7-Eleven. Canada, The Slurpees are amazing. You know how you get a Slurpee down here and you suck it a few times and the ice all turns white and it just dries up? They don't do that in Canada. They stay wet and you can drink them, and assuming you drink them before they melt in the heat, they stay a Slurpee the whole time. They're fantastic. And we used to mix all the flavors together. Thought we were so inventive. Now, especially here in Utah, there's stores everywhere, Swig, Fizz-It, all these stores where their whole specialty is, hey, you can mix any drink you want together. Take all these flavors, put them all together, do whatever you want. Dirty soda, that whole thing, it's blowing up. In fact, I've started seeing it in California now too. But 7-Eleven was amazing. Not to mention, 7-Eleven was originally named that because it was open from 7 to 11. And in our town, that was completely unheard of. A store open till 11 o'clock? This is the best thing ever. Friday night, we're hanging out, it's 10 o'clock. Hey, let's go get a candy bar and a Slurpee for 35 cents. That's definitely dating myself, but had a fantastic childhood. Grew up in that little town, tons of freedom. Our summers were amazing. My parents, I didn't really realize it at the time. My dad didn't make a lot of money. He made a nice living. He provided for us amazingly. We had a fantastic life. I would have never guessed that our family didn't have a lot of money. We had great Christmases. Every summer, they would rent a cabin for a week, either up in British Columbia in the Kootenays or down in Montana around the Whitefish area. Specifically, we'd go to a little lake called Lake Blaine. And we did that many times. We'd get a cabin. It was so fantastic. One of the best memories of my life, bunch of memories, is going there and hanging out with my two next younger brothers, Trond and Leif. And the other brothers I wasn't very close to them because I was so much older than all of them. I am close to them now. My youngest brother just turned 53 just a couple days ago. And my mom would give me, Trond and Leif, each 25 cents, a quarter. And back then, for a little while, the Canadian dollar was worth more than the American dollar. So we loved going to Montana. And she'd give us a quarter, and there was a little general store at the resort. And we'd go to the store, and we could buy a soda and a candy bar for 25 cents. And the soda cans were different than they were in Canada. In Canada, we had 10-ounce cans back then. So they were just slim. They weren't fat. Like you look at a soda can, it's smaller at the top and the bottom and kind of fat in the middle. So when we saw those, they were 12-ounce cans, and that was amazing. We didn't know the math back then, but hey, 20% more soda, and it just looked way bigger. But yeah, 25 cents, candy bar and a soda. That resort had a beautiful little lake with a roped off swimming area, beautiful clear water, lots of water skiing. And next to the lake, right next to the lake, was a roller skating rink that would open every night at, I don't remember what time, 6, 7, 8 o'clock. And then over on the other side, next to the lake as well, was a little pool hall. It had a pool table, like maybe one pinball machine and a jukebox. And we would play, for a dime you could get, I can't remember if it was 3 or 5 songs. And we would pick songs like The Night Chicago Died and Smoking in the Boys' Room and just all these Rock Me Gently, all these songs from the early to mid 70s. I'm so grateful to my parents because we had such an amazing childhood and we had so much fun growing up. But they did that for us every year. In fact, when I went to college, when I turned 17, when I came back for the summer, they still did that. But I had to work. I had to, earn money for my next year and then eventually for a Mormon mission. And I never got to do one of those family vacations with them again until it would have been the summer of 95. I had started dating Kate, my wife now, and we decided, I had just gotten divorced the year before, and I got together with my parents and my brother and his family who live in Salt Lake and decided, let's go to Lake Blaine. Who knows when we're ever going to be able to do this again. So unfortunately, I had a fight with my wife the day we were supposed to leave, and she didn't come with us, and I still regret that. But it was such a fun trip. We got to go back. I took my daughter. She was 5 at the time, and I rented a couple jet skis for us, and one of my buddies, who's now my brother-in-law, came down and hung out, and we just jet skied all day and hung out. We got a big cabin right on the lake, and it was amazing. Not long after that, the resort sold out to private equity, and now it's all houses there, and there's no access anymore. It makes me really sad because it's such a big part of my life. I went to college, like I said, when I was 17, Ricks College, Rexburg, Idaho, which was kind of a mini BYU. It was kind of known as a place, I didn't know this when I went there, but it was kind of known as a place where a lot of Mormon families would send their kids who were a little wild, hoping they would kind of straighten out. And at Ricks College, it was kind of split. There were the good Mormon kids that went to church, did everything they were supposed to do, and then there were the party kids. And you always had to do it on the down low, because you would get kicked out of college if you were caught drinking or, premarital sex, or even fooling around with a girl. Could get you in real trouble. In fact, I had a friend that got kicked out. In fact, I'm going to ask him, I just remembered this story. I'm going to ask him if he's okay with me telling this story, because it's pretty freaking funny and ballsy. So, yeah, I went with one of my best friends, who's still one of my best friends. Him and his wife were down here a couple months ago, and we went to dinner. We went to college together, roomed together for that first year, and then we both went on missions. He went to Korea, South Korea. I went to Norway. We kept in touch the whole time. We sent cassette tapes back and forth. And I did that with several friends. I had a friend in Italy, one in Iceland. There were other places as well, but came back, applied for BYU. My grades sucked when I went to Ricks the first year. I didn't even try. When I went to Ricks after Canadian high school, the math and stuff like that was like our junior high math in Canada. I don't know if it's still like that, but it was just so easy that I didn't even try. And eventually, you gotta still try. I just got horrible grades. So when I came back, couldn't get into BYU, I went back to Ricks College, and the first semester back, I got a 4.0. And I took all of those classes over again because they dragged my GPA down so badly. So I went to Ricks for 2 years, got my GPA up to like a 3.8, and then I went to BYU, which is where I graduated. It took me many, many years, because I got married and divorced and worked and a whole bunch of stuff in between. I didn't graduate BYU until the spring of '95, about 6 or 7 months after my divorce. And so it took me 14 years. I graduated high school in '81. I mean, I didn't go to school for 14 years, but I also switched my major several times, and actually had enough credits. If I'd have taken 3 or 4 more classes, I probably could have had 3 or 4 different undergraduate degrees. But I was so sick of school. My plan was to go to medical school. And I had started the process of applying. I decided I can't handle 4 years of medical school after all this time, and then 2 or 3 or 4 years of residency and all the stuff that entails and the cost of it. So I applied to dental school and podiatry school. I don't remember if I ever finished the process, if I ever got accepted. I don't remember any of that. It's kind of weird, the things your memory leaves out. But I decided I can't do any more college. I was going to teach high school. That's what my degree was. But I never looked into it as I was going through the classes, my degree. And when I graduated, and this was '95, I was going to make $17,000 a year as a teacher. I was making that much painting houses in the summer. And I was like, look, I don't have to be rich, but I'm not going to be poor. I'm not going to live my life as a pauper. It's better here now. I think teachers make pretty good living now. But it was brutal. Every teacher I ran into had a summer job or a night job just to pay the bills. I'm like, I'm not doing that. So I'd been painting houses during the summer all through college to, pay my bills. So I just started my own painting company. And I've been running that now for, 37 years. And we're a licensed contractor here in Utah, and we're trying to kind of move our business here for a couple of years before I retire, and then maybe hopefully sell it. Got married to my ex-wife in '89. We had actually been good friends, so we met her at a dance club. We used to go to the dance clubs a lot on the weekend. Rick's College had 2 dance clubs that we went to all the time, and then BYU had 2. And we would go to I think it was called the Star Palace back in the day. Anybody from this area, you'll remember it. And then later came the Ivy, but we liked the Star Palace. And I was there with 2, 3, 4 of my buddies, including one of my best friends who's now my brother-in-law. And we both saw her across the dance floor, my ex-wife. And super cute, just really pretty girl. And we're both like, oh geez, I'm interested in her. He got to her first, and he dated her for a little while. And then the next year would have been, excuse me, I'm sorry about this. It's something I can't do anything about. I've tried all kinds of stuff. It would have been the summer of '88. I came back a little early because I was, I don't remember what they called it, but I was a counselor for BYU for the freshmen coming in. And we take everybody up into the mountains for a couple days for this whole orientation thing. And Andrea, my ex-wife, had come back a little early as well. So we started hanging out, and my friend who had dated her the year before, his college didn't start until like the middle of September. So I was there for like 3 weeks before he came back. We started dating. And I remember thinking right off the bat, this girl is really cool, she's really cute, but I don't know that we have a lot in common. I don't really see this going anywhere. And I actually told her that. And I think she kind of felt the same way about me too. But next thing you know, there was so much pressure back then. If you grew up Mormon, there was so much pressure to get married. I was 25, and that was considered an old man. And so I proposed after just a couple of 3 months of dating, I think. I remember the night. We went to a dance. She looked beautiful. She was wearing a red dress. I remember the song Lady in Red played. I had rented a limo, and afterwards we took the limo out to Utah Lake and I had the driver just park out there somewhere, and I proposed to her in the limo. And it was a really fun night. We got married in the Salt Lake Mormon Temple, which I would not recommend to anybody. If you're LDS and you're getting married in a temple, pick a small temple, because they herded us like cattle. It was not a cool experience. I did not like how they did it. I did not feel like a person. I felt like a number. Pick a small temple if you're LDS and you want to get married in the temple. Do not go to the Salt Lake Temple. Sorry, it's a beautiful building, but it was not an intimate experience at all. But I remember, I won't go into details. I don't talk about what happens in the temple out of respect for the church. I know other people do. If you want to see that, you can go find it. You're not going to get it from me. But the ceremony was very plain, simple. I felt ripped off. And I've talked about how later, when my oldest daughter got married, I felt ripped off again because I didn't get to see my daughter, my little girl, get married. And it hurt my soul, still does. And I've done a video about that. If you want to see more about that, you can watch it. My screen just went kind of dark. I hope my phone isn't getting too hot. Guess we'll see. So that marriage, we had Sherston, my oldest daughter. That marriage lasted 5.5 years. It actually was over pretty quickly. We just kind of kept fighting through it and trying to make it work, and eventually it was clear. She left. I would have eventually, but I'm so glad she did. I was really hurt at the time. In fact, I've done a video about the depression I went into, and it was bad, darkest time of my life. But it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because less than a year later I met Kate. I had no intention of getting married. Maybe someday, but not that soon. None. And she had a little boy who I ended up adopting. In fact, I'm going to try and do a video with Braden, maybe later today, about raising non-Mormon kids in a Mormon community. And I asked him about it last night. He says, I don't know if you want to do that. There's not a lot good for me to say about it. I said, I want to get the truth out there. I want people to hear it from somebody who lived it. So I might do that later today or tomorrow. Anyway, next thing I know, I proposed to her at a Red Lobster in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. We were visiting my parents. My dad, to this day, we make fun of him because I told the wait staff about it. I bought a cubic zirconia because I didn't want to put a real diamond ring in her food. If somebody steals it or who knows what. So I bought a really nice cubic zirconia and had them put it in her, I can't remember if it was her drink or her meal. And then they all gathered around and everybody was looking and knew something was going on. My dad was busy talking to somebody. I got down on my knee, proposed to her. The whole restaurant erupted, all the wait staff. They were so fantastic. And it was really cool. And when it was over, my dad's like, something's going on here. And my mom was like, oh, do you never pay attention to anything? Still a fun story we tell. We've been married, it'll be 30 years in November. We dated for about a year and a half. And like I said, I adopted her son. I had my daughter, she's very close to Kate. And then we had 2 more kids, Cooper and Hannah. And it's the Brady Bunch, but it's fantastic. I have a blessed, beautiful family. And I'm seeing that this video is starting to run kind of long, so I'm going to split this into 2 parts. If you're still interested, I'll tell the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey would say, in the next couple of days. So we'll leave it there for now. Tack för denna gång. Vi snackas igen snart. I hope you all are having a great day. It's a beautiful hot day. I gotta go take a shower. It's so hot out here. I don't know what the hell I'm doing bringing a hot coffee out here, but yeah. I will talk to you all soon. Thank you so much for subscribing, for liking, for commenting, for sharing. I dig y'all. Hope you all have a beautiful day. Peace. Love.